voice, but Richie Cottingham is taking that idea quite literally.
He's used an artificial voice his entire life because of having cerebral palsy. But now he's on a quest to replace the standard computerised pronunciation with something a lot more Yorkshire, as Fiona Lambton's been finding out.
My name is Richard Cottingham.
I'm Richard Cottingham.
I'm Richard Cottingham.
But I like to be called Richie.
I'd like to be called Richie.
Be called Richie.
26-year-old Richie has cerebral palsy.
My generic voice is not my identity.
He's never had his own voice and has always had to communicate via a computer.
Once I have a new, unique voice, I have an identity.
Now he hopes to create an entirely new voice by blending recordings of two local men.
To find an individual voice for Richie to call his own is absolutely critical to allow him to fit in with his community, with his family, with his friends.
What are you looking for in a new voice?
I'd like a young man's voice with a subtle East Yorkshire accent. Someone who has a nice smile.
So far, 36 men have come forward.
Hiya, my name's Billy. I live in Hull.
My name's Gaz. I'm 24 years old from York.
My favourite colour is red, and my favourite food is Sunday dinner, especially Yorkshire puddings.
Good evening, Richie.
But it's up to Richie to listen and draw up a shortlist.
What do you think of that one then? Give me a rating out of 10.
I'm a local lad myself. Obviously, I'm a massive Yorkshire lad.
This is 29-year-old Ryan, who lives just a few miles from Richie.
Kirby's taught me that really we need to try and do everything we can to help anybody, you know, and if it's the littlest thing that might make that person's life a little bit better, then I'm more than happy to help out where I can.
Ryan had never considered the importance of voice until he saw the former rugby player Rob Burrow on breakfast.
I have motor neuron disease and there is no cure.
Rob banked his voice after being diagnosed with motor neuron disease.
You know, someone like Rob Burrow has had that statue and, you know, the greats that he's been able to publicise it to a lot of people and make a lot more people know about it. But someone like Richie is just, you know, one small guy in a small village.
Being from around the whole area,
There's also 26-year-old Scott, who's proud of his East Yorkshire accent.
it's quite a friendly accent. I'd say that you're a lot more affable if you sound northern.
Are there any particular phrases you'd be keen to put in the voice bank?
I guess there's a lot of dialect that throws people off. If I say chip spice, people haven't heard that. It's not mum, it's mam. There's about 100 different words for bread roll in there. I go for bread bap.
Hi, I'm Richard Cottingham.
Hi, I'm Richard Cottingham.
Hi, I'm Richard Cottingham.
But I'd like to be called Richie.
And there are many, many others who are keen to help.
It's something that he couldn't do because he's never been able to speak, but I thought it's something that we all take for granted.
What started as the search for a new voice has turned into something so much bigger.
I would like to say how good the experience has made me feel.
And after 26 years of waiting, Richie finally hopes to have his new voice in the next few months.
I would like to say thank you to all the volunteers who took the time and effort to apply.
Fiona Lambton, BBC News.
Do you know, I think what we're going to need to do is when Richie gets his new voice, we are going to have to hear it. And we saw that film a little earlier on. One of the things that jumped out was how Richie said he wanted a voice with a smile. Somebody who was smiling a lot. It comes through in the voice. Let's talk about it now. From New Zealand, we're joined by David Alderman. He recorded his voice for his dad, Bob, who was living with motor neuron disease at that time. Also say hello to Richard Cave, who's a speech and language therapist. Very good morning to both of you. David, what a fantastic story yours is. You've kind of been there already. So sadly, your dad died, I think, last year, but you were able to gift him your voice. Just talk us through how that happened.
Good morning. Yes, I live in New Zealand, but when my father was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, I was my work were quite relaxed about allowing me to travel back frequently to visit. So when I first returned to the UK after his diagnosis, he was still able to speak himself, and we discussed banking his voice, and he'd asked if he wasn't able to manage it, if I could step in So I did.
Well,
when he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing to do for your father, but straight away people will be thinking how extraordinary. So you would have been speaking to him, and you would have heard your voice in return.
Yeah, it was a little bit uncanny to begin with, but I got used to that being how he spoke once he was using it. So if I hear recordings of him using it now, it's him as far as I'm concerned. It's his words, but my voice. But it reminds me of him.
It's such a personal thing, and Richard, hearing David talk about his experience and knowing when we were hearing from Richie earlier, it is all part of your identity, and it's something that needs to be considered quite carefully.
It is, yeah. It's our voice communicates our mood, our humour, our geographical and social background, all in addition to the message that we want to share. And it helps us share who we are and actually who we want to be, and actually what we want to say, and help understand what the real message is behind our words. And I think, Richie and Jennifer and the amazing people who volunteered to donate their voices are showing this in a really practical way, that the sound of voice matters, whether it comes from a communication device or someone talking. And it all matters to help people understand and participate in the way that they would like to.
And you do work with people who are at risk of losing their voice, and I suppose that in itself is a difficult conversation, but once it's accepted as a possibility, the idea is it's done, this replacement or this innovation is done as quickly as possible, so there's as much involvement while the voice still exists in the patient.
Exactly right. I mean, voice banking these days is much quicker than it used to be. It can be done in an hour or less, and actually you don't need to visit. Speech language therapists can actually help people online to actually do their voice banking. It can be done at home, doesn't need special equipment, and this ease and speed is really important for people who are at risk of losing their natural voice, such as people living with motor neuron disease or those about to have surgery. And a speech language therapist can advise on the best voice banking tool and actually help people through the process. And also further on, a speech therapist can help people to kind of find a communication device to use that voice bank in. So something that suits their needs, that's easy, accessible, and as quick as possible to use in their daily life.
David, tell us a little more about some of the phrases, because I mean, I'm imagining, just like Richie, real character, sense of humour and all those things which everyone has. Were there phrases that your dad wanted recorded that surprised you? How did that process work?
I was given phrases to read. I figured out that there were paragraphs from various books, American classics, so there was definitely some Wizard of Oz and some Jack London and Little Women, but there were a few local words that if you use the normal text-to-speech and put in my hometown of Yeovil, it has trouble with how that's pronounced. So some words, people's names and things like that, I'd add those as specific. This is how you say this.
Well, do you know what? I mean, I think it's a lovely. I think I'm getting the impression for you, David. I mean, it's kind of a lovely thing that that connection right at the end in such difficult times. That's something that you probably really cherish now, isn't it?
Yes, I still have a copy of my voice, and I could load it into my computer and just fool around with it. But I'm kind of that wouldn't make it special anymore. So I'm avoiding doing that unless I need it.
Oh, it's great that you've got lovely memories of working with your dad, and of course sorry for his loss, and he passed away last year. David, thank you for joining us from Wellington. David Alderman there, and Richard Cave, speech and language therapist as well. Thanks for joining us from London.
So it's just come up to 8:50.